Hey, folks, happy Friday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name's Jason Robertson, and I'm here with my partner in crime,
Todd Peterson. Thanks for joining us, folks. And J. Rob is also commenting on his own podcast. You know, it's going to be a good show today when J. Rob from Minnesota is in the house on Freedom from the Press. Folks, thanks for joining us. Kagan Girl beat us today. Market Zero beat us today. Francis beat us today here. And Facebook, Jason, I tried to use, like euphemistic phrasing as much as possible for the headline today. Urban crime, Dems blaming carmakers. We have a wild story of Minnesota again. We're not doing this on purpose, folks, but it is our home state of Minnesota that is again making national news for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, and I had to look up too. There was a few other states that were associated with that. So we'll get into the car stuff. It's crazy. But as we get rolling here, got to give a huge shout out to our audience. Facebook, we're on the YouTube, we're on the Twitter, X, but our personal favorite, the Rumble. We love the Rumble chat. Why do we love Rumble? They give us free speech because we're going to talk about some stuff and a little of it gets spicy and we got to be a little careful in how we phrase things. And on some of these platforms, Facebook, YouTube, you put a little too spicy headline in there. You say something a little too spicy, best case, they suppress you. Worst case, they nuke your page. So if you haven't, head over to the Rumble, check it out. We got a great audience over there. They always tune in early, and we do a last half hour of the show. Usually ends up being 45 minutes. We do Rumble only where we get really fiery. And as we round out the year, Todd, I'm just fired up. I don't know about you.
We came in high hopes, ready to go with Donald Trump. And I see some of these stories, Jason. Yeah, this is our last show of the year, by the way, folks. Next Friday, the 26th, Christmas is taking over here. So we're going to round it out the year. I got to be honest, Jason, a lot of good things have happened this year, but man, Dems are getting away with some just horrible things still. Donald Trump needs to ramp it up with the final 3 years.
Yeah, and really, he gave that address a couple days ago in the evening, tricked everybody into watching it by thinking they were starting a war, and which I thought was kind of a good move by Donald, but I'm a little biased. But it was interesting because he was outlining his economic policies, and Donald Trump, and he touched on some other things like the border deportations. And for me, the remaining 3 years of Donald Trump's presidency comes down to two things. One, does he get his economic agenda in place? Do we get manufacturing back in America? Do we get people back to work? There's some pretty good indicators with federal layoffs and that sort of thing. And the second thing is, what are we going to do to get all the illegals out? Send them all home. Add it in the chat, folks. Send them home. Send them home. We did that, was it last week? And we had like
2 weeks ago. Yeah, that was great.
It's like everybody chanting,
all
send
caps,
them home.
preferably. Jason, I'm going to add to your list too. Good morning, Dee, by the way. Thanks for joining the program here. Again, on Rumble. Folks, if you're watching the program live, you see the chats. They're all over on Rumble. If you're watching us on Facebook, thank you. Give us a like, give us a share. Right, send them home in the comments section. That helps the algorithm. But then head over to Rumble. Jason, they need to do something about these judges. Right now, we don't live in a country run by a duly elected president. We live in a country run by a totalitarian judicial regime. One person on a random bench can overrule the president of the United States and Congress right now. That has to change. We got a story, folks, where one judge might be held accountable, might go to prison for trying to help an illegal alien, but there are so many judges. We've had how many stories, Jason? Trump does this, judge says no. Trump says that, judge says no. And for some reason, Donald Trump is abiding by these decisions. He should be looking at the judge and say, with what army do you have to enforce that insane ruling?
Yeah, we used the line on the show. I think our partner Will might have come up with it, or maybe it was you, somebody way smarter than me. But it was, we want the Trump the left thinks he is. Like, oh my God. And this just warms my heart. Nothing says that Christmas spirit, like people chanting, send them home, send them home. Accountability. Yes. And that's what we're going to talk about today as we dig into some of these stories, because Donald Trump, if you're just going out there and you're just whacking the hornet's nest, making them mad, and you aren't moving the needle, we are all in trouble. And nobody is a bigger Trump supporter than Todd and I. No, like, we worked hard. We worked to help the campaign. Like, we are big Trump people. But Donald Trump right now, you're making them mad. You're stirring the hornet's nest. And if we don't crush them, if they 2026, if they take the midterms, It's going to be awful the next 2 years. Then when they win in 2028, because you aren't able to get anything done, it will be worse than we found in 2020. So, yeah, and there's so many stories like, well, we probably can't talk about it on the platforms. Did you see the news coming out of Georgia?
About which one?
The news coming out of Georgia about the ballots.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we can't even talk about the sheer number of ballots that are alleged and believed. We can't even go there, Jason. Just understand Trump lost Georgia by 11,000 votes. That's the mainstream narrative. He lost by 11,000 votes. Use your imagination for some other numbers there.
We might need to touch on that in the Rumble.
We'll go to Rumble only, man. I got to say this, Jason. Can I ask a rhetorical question? I don't even know if it's rhetorical. I'm going to ask a question for our smart audience. How much legislation has the GOP majority House and Senate passed supporting the America First agenda, Donald Trump's agenda, in our entire first year? Again, this is our last podcast for 2025. We're recapping an entire year of Trump's administration. What has Congress done with our majority, Jason?
And I'm going to give everybody a clue. Drop in the chats how many pieces of legislation you think they've passed. And notice that the average it is to run between 100 and 200 pieces of legislation in their first year. So think of that number, percolate on that. There's a little bit of a delay, so we'll give you a second. We'll take a little pull of our Split Rock coffee. Todd, did you know it's coffee you can drink all day?
You know, I drink it morning to night, and it's low acid. It is coffee you can drink all day. And the best part about it, Jason, not only is it delicious, it is produced by another Minnesotan. We love Minnesotans here. Disabled veteran-owned coffee company, splitrockcoffee.com. You can have great coffee. You can support a great cause as we are combating Tim Walz' tyranny here in Minnesota here. Splitrockcoffee.com. Use promo code Todd10 today and subscribe and save. You can have this coffee delivered to your door every single time, every 2 weeks, every month at your pleasure. Splitrockcoffee.com. Promo code Todd10.
Love it. And I got to say, one more filibuster while we wait. We aren't getting a lot of numbers in there. Mark, you can piss off the hornet's nest, but you better have a flamethrower. And it's funny. I remember when I first got my house, I had a little bee's nest that they were building, and I didn't have any spray or whatnot. So I'm like, this will be great to go up and whack on that thing. Bunk, you hit it. And that was a bad idea. And right now, Donald Trump is doing a good job of whacking the hornet's nest, but we need to get the wasp spray, because if we don't take it down, it is going to be terrible. All right, Todd, do you want to do the big reveal?
I don't know, Jason. I'm going to go with Francis and say 0.
There have been 5 pieces of legislation that they have passed so far this year. Average president, 1 to 200 pieces of legislation, especially in the first year. Because how the cycle goes, the first year you pass your stuff. Your second year, generally, you don't get a lot done because everybody's worried about re-election. Your third year, you can get stuff done if you have the House and Senate. And then your fourth year, you get nothing done. So we are finishing prime time in getting things done. And I will say, hey, Todd, this will be another pop quiz for you. How many members of the deep state have been arrested?
Now that one, let me go back to Francis. 0. Hey. Nope.
Yeah, and Dan Bongino's going back to podcasting. Now, we haven't talked about that, Todd. What's your take on that?
I want to be generous to Bongino. I may even be generous to Kash Patel. Kash Patel wrote the book. Bongino had the podcast. These guys were as blustery as anybody about the corrupt deep state. We're going to go in and knock heads. Maybe, Jason, just maybe, an agency of 50,000 people, all sworn enemies of America, all embedded in the deep state, might be hard to overturn the culture here. So that is my generous assessment, that they were just in over their head, and maybe anybody would be in over their head. But that also proves the point why, instead of trying to reform these agencies, you just need to dismantle them. You need to take wrecking balls and bulldozers, and you pink slip everybody, and you say, there is no more FBI. We are starting over. But
right. I don't know. And I mean, that's what Kash ran on. Like, it's going to be a museum.
Yeah.
Bro, what's going on?
What's your take on this? Are you going to be generous like I am? Or are you just like, they're part of the problem? That's the other, I guess that's the other part of it. Are you just in on it too?
Well, I'll be glass half full. Getting Dan Bongino back in the podcasting space, I think, is a win, because Bondi, I have a feeling, is blocking a lot. Yeah, I think you're right. Probably. I think Dan back in the podcast space is good. because with Charlie gone, everybody's fighting over stupid stuff. And it's like, for God's sakes, guys. I think the thing that's terrifying to me is if Dan and Cash can't make a dent, reform it, that kind of thing, like who are we going to get that's going to do that? And I don't know what or how Dan can say that. Maybe it was all Pam Bondi, but I got a feeling when they get rid of Bondi, it's still going to be a problem. And Pam has done some okay things. She's done some horrible things. Like some of this EEOC stuff we're going to talk about kind of comes downstream from Pam Bondi. But yeah, the FBI, like it's beyond reform. Like it's just time to pack it up.
And so I was being generous, but do you remember what was this in May or June? Cash and Bongino sat down with Fox and they were just like deer in the headlight. There's nothing in the Epstein file. So I don't know. I think there's something on them there. If there might have been some threats made to their entire family, like you're not going to say anything. Otherwise, we know where your kids go to school. So that could also be involved. I wouldn't put that past the deep state. But then I have a question for you, Jason, since we're talking about Bongino, maybe our audience too. Do you go back to Bongino? So here you have a guy, pre-FBI, huge platform, great message, lots of talk, but then he gets a chance to go on the walk. He gets a chance to take action, back up all the words that he said for all those years. And then there's like no action. So do you get to go back to the talking and the riling up and the agitating when people have now seen that like there's nothing to support that?
I think that's where it's going to be tough for Dan because he built his entire platform on the deep state's corrupt. We need people to go in there and fix it. And then if you went in there and you had your chance to fix it, you didn't do nothing with it.
That's kind of where I'm at. I assume he gets his microphone back, but I'm just like, what audience is left for him? Like, who's going to listen to a guy that actually had a chance to go do something and back up his words and failed?
Well, and it's not even that he failed. He gave up.
He quit.
It's not even a year. Now, if he comes out and if he goes, okay, listen, guys, I really thought I could make a difference. I went in there between Pam and the deep state. They're threatening my family. And there was just, we weren't going to get anywhere. Like the machine is that far installed. Yeah. The machine is undefeated. They've killed multiple presidents, whatever he says, then I think that could stick and people might listen to the guy, but if it's like, oh, we need to arrest people. Well, that used to be your job.
I'm also terrified on the other side because you and I both know, we keep saying this, Dems will come back to power with the FBI still in place, not dismantled at all. Basically, they ran him out instead of the other way around. What do you think the FBI will do to you and me and Bongino and Trump and all the other conservatives that tried to fight it and lost and are just ready to be taken?
It's funny you say that, Todd, because it might be time for all of us to look around and just say, you know what, maybe, just maybe, we just need to go liberal. Like I was thinking about it because we have liberal family members, they get welfare. They just think all my life will be better if I just steal money from Elon Musk because he's a billionaire. Like, I just need the government to steal more money from people's taxes. And this kind of dovetails into the car thing. Like I don't think anybody should be held accountable for anything they do because it's not their fault. It's just not their fault. Like, I mean, what a great world it would be to like roll out of bed and think that's real. And as we look at this car story, do you want to frame up this car story?
Yeah, boy, oh boy, this will be fun. Before I do, though, you mentioned Elon Musk and stealing his wealth. I think people just need to understand the numbers here. So I punched it in my calculator really fast. He has a net worth of, let's say, $650 billion. That's a lot of money, right? $650 billion. There are 350 million people in the U.S., let's say, probably 400 with Biden's illegals and Dem illegals, but I did 350 million. If every American got an equal share of Elon Musk's net worth, do you know how much that would be, Jason?
I don't know, what, 40 grand?
Under $2,000. And it would be a one-time payment, folks. You could steal all of Elon's money and distribute it across the board in a communist utopia, and you would get $2,000 one time. And then Elon is broke, so he has no more businesses to employ people or provide a service. And what are you going to do with your $2,000 with inflation as all that money enters circulation? So I don't know how to stress communism is a retarded idea enough, Jason. Oh, we made it
What?
15 minutes.
And it's funny because so I got a family member that's always like the 1%, the 1%, and the billionaires. And so I actually ran it through the calculator. If you take all the net worth of all the billionaires in America and distribute it to all the Americans or all the residents of America, including the illegals, right? You end up with like 35,000 a person. Like that's how much you get if you take all the billionaires' money and give it to all the Americans. Now, their fallacy of the 1% goes down to $12 million. So if you have $12 million in assets, like if your business, your construction, I mean, at 12 billion in value, like that's your local construction company. That's that's a lot of people in that pool. Those aren't like I've got a private jet. Those are still guys going to work. So yeah, the socialist.
I got to fact check you, Jason. I think it's a lot lower. I think it's under $1 million if you're considered top 1%. Like the top 1% of income earners make less than $1 million. Like,
no. So depending on how you measure it, top 1% makes like 500,000-600,000 a year, but their total assets are like $12 million.
Okay. Or we could steal all the billionaires' money worth what, $7 trillion and pay off the debt, and we still owe like $30 trillion in the United States. Like none of the math is mathing up here to redistribute
right.
wealth.
It's just ridiculous. Well, and then Elon came out yesterday or the day before and tweeted something stupid where he's like, with robots, we're going to get to a point where there's universal basic income, which means all the communists, like Bernie did a big response, and he's like, when are we going to do that? Because we need to do that now. And it's like, you people, like communism never built anything, socialism, everybody knows everything about Hitler, but nobody even knows, about Stalin or Leninism, and nobody knows about Mao. Mao killed like 5 times more people than freaking Hitler, but, through the communist revolution, the socialist revolution. But it's just so frustrating.
And I can't think of anything more depressing than relying on the state for a check. What a useless life. You've been blessed with life on planet Earth, and you're going to spend it just waiting to get your government check. Well, I got my UBI again. I'm just living it up.
Well, and like there was that video, I think Will was tweeting about it. I think I tweeted about it too, with the woman like, why are they letting my SNAP not buy fat? Oh, we should find that one. It might be fun on a Friday. Because this woman's like, I can't believe they not letting me buy my snack cakes with my SNAP benefits. And I'm like, it's astounding. And you look at the comments, and not mine. I didn't get a lot of reach, but on like the original posts. And there are Americans that vote in elections that don't think it's their responsibility to pay for their own food. They don't think I need to actually contribute enough to society so that people give me money so I can buy food. Oh, yeah. All right.
We are going on so many different tangents here, but here's Jason's clip. By the way, folks, can we give Jason some kudos in the chat section? His impersonations today, Bernie Sanders, single EBT receiving mom here. He's just on point today. Give Jason some props in the comments section.
Even cool. Like, why they do that? What's the point of food stamps if it's just for real food?
Hannah Moore believes she and
every time they show these SNAP recipients, they kind of make the argument for themselves why they don't need SNAP recipients. Like, does this look like a starving woman?
SNAP recipients should be able to go into the grocery store and buy whatever they like. Soda, candy, prepackaged sweets, prepared desserts, and juice with less than half of natural fruit or vegetable juice in it will not be allowed to be purchased on SNAP cards.
I don't know what Trump is doing. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. Why they do that?
Well, I'm going to flip back too, just when we were talking about Bongino. And Dee Dee's right. Andrew Bailey is already in the FBI. So if you want to look at how this plans out, they put Bailey as like co-assistant director a few months ago. And Bailey has done some okay things. I think he was from Texas. Bubba in the chat over on the Rumble probably knows more about him. But I'm betting he's going to be the guy that's going to do it. But yeah, so let's look at this woman. First, you have the big fake eyelashes, clearly wearing makeup. I'm guessing the eyebrow thing, I don't know. Let me know in the chat. Is the little shave a notch in your eyebrow? Probably going to the beautician. You have AirPods in. You clearly, I mean, just looking at her, she is well fed. She has nice clothes. She has a jacket that might be an Under Armour logo. I mean, you're not starving, ma'am. I don't think. Yeah, she's probably got an iPhone. Looks like she's got some fake fingernails. You could show her quality of life to these third world immigrants, and they do, that are living in Zimbabwe or Venezuela or whatnot. You could show this woman and they'd be like, wow, she is like the queen. She is like living high on the hog. But more importantly, this woman thinks there is absolutely zero responsibility in her life that she learns knowledge, skills, and abilities so that she can provide for herself. And yet her vote counts the same as ours, Todd.
Yeah. And again, I got to stress this. Money is fungible. So she has enough disposable income to get all the fancy accoutrements on her get up there. Got the phone, got the pods, got a car in the parking lot probably. She doesn't have to go buy food or make tough decisions or sacrifice or cut back somewhere because she knows she's taken care of everywhere else. These people want to make zero sacrifices. They don't want to have any privation in their life here. No, this woman does not deserve $1 from taxpayers. No one does, especially when they flaunt all the other, I'm not going to say wealth, but the other material goods that they are able to possess.
Right. Well, and it's kind of like when people say, food or healthcare or housing is a human right. No, it's really not.
Nope.
Like we've lost the fundamental part where people say, I, as a young person, need to learn how I'm going to contribute something to the abundance of society. She is living off the abundance that working people like us create. That's right, Alice. Get a job. And if I don't create abundance, if Todd doesn't, if our audience doesn't create abundance, that abundance is stolen from us and given to her. And she doesn't even think, she thinks everybody should get this stuff for free, but she is not responsible to produce, even meeting her needs, much less produce abundance that you can steal and give to somebody else. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well.
And as we segue into Keith Ellison here, folks, I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a racially tinged episode today, Jason, and I'm ready for it. This woman has no problem with you and I going to work every day and then losing a good portion of our paycheck to fund her lifestyle. It's almost like we work for her in reverse against our will. There's a word for that, Jason, when you work for someone else in your labor all against your will here. I don't know. It escapes me.
But we hear a lot about it. We need reparations. Yeah, it was funny because I'm worried about Christmas because we all have, those awkward Christmas conversations. And we have a couple socialists in the family who they have never produced any abundance in their life. Able-bodied, they're not mentally handicapped, any of those things. And they think everything's a human right. And I'm like, okay, well, how come you aren't working hard to produce the excess so that people that really can't produce are taken care of? Like, why is that not your responsibility to at least meet your minimum, societal contribution and give stuff to other people? Like, you aren't even covering your own nut. How? Oh, so frustrating. Good luck to me.
Yeah, what a great question. Maybe, what if we all deserve to be on the other side of receiving? How does that work in society when we all feel entitled to someone else's labor, but there's no one left to labor?
No, and Francis nails it. People used to be embarrassed. Which is funny.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, because Market Zero jumped in there, and Market's mentioned this before here on Snap. I think some of other people, if you're on Social Security or Snap here, this is not a blanket statement. And I always like to call this woman is abusing the system. I don't think you agree with this, Jason. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I am not entirely opposed to sound government safety nets that are in place for, and again, I want to get rid of Social Security, but not if you're grandfathered in. I want to get rid of SNAP, but again, not if there's an actual threshold to meet here or you've paid dues to society. these can all be sunsetted and people can have the expectation that they got to go get their own. So I'm not blanket statement saying it all needs to disappear tomorrow night here, but it's just the abuse of the system. This woman is abusing the system. The Haitian nationals in Boston that made millions of dollars setting up a fake store to sell their snap cards. The Somalis in Minnesota that faked their way to, now we're hearing like $18 billion. Like you can't even wrap your head around the amount of fraud getting committed in Minnesota by just the Somali community, let alone the entire urban community in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rochester, Duluth. So I don't know. I want to make that distinction too. We're not just railing against everyone that needs those programs.
Well, and it's an important thing for people to understand. As a good Christian or as a good Christian Minnesotan, like when you see somebody struggling, you want to help them. You want to buy them a meal. You want to donate. You want to help them solve their life's issues. But your effort can exceed theirs. You know what I mean? And also, it needs to be my choice to give you, like I've helped friends, families, neighbors with people that have hit legitimate struggles. Never had an issue with that. But, you know, like real world, when we talk about the socialists in our family, like we were helping them a bit financially. And like my wife and I own a business, so we work quite a bit, right? My wife works 40 to 45 hours a week. And then the socialists who we were helping financially, one's working 20, one's working 36. And we're like, wait a second. Like my wife could probably retire. We'd have to scale back our standard of living. I could go another 10 years doing our business. And yet we're working more than they are, and we're funding their stuff. It's just like all backwards. It's all backwards. Oh, and Bubba with the Andrew Bailey. Bailey is a hardline conservative, very pro-Trump, good AG in Missouri. Oh, that's right. He was from Missouri. Thanks for that, Bubba.
All right, Jason, it took half an hour to get to our headline story here, but I think it's time. And it does dovetail into this conversation right here. You are looking at the face of unaccountability, can do no wrong. So, folks, there is a story coming out of Minnesota and elsewhere, but Keith Ellison has kind of taken the lead on the lawsuit. Some cars were manufactured on the cheap. They decided not to install in them some anti-theft measures that would have otherwise made it harder, if not impossible, to maybe steal or hotwire or just plug in any random device to act as a key. And so these cars got stolen. You can guess who the perpetrators are without much Googling here. There was a community that loves to engage itself in crime and ne'er-do-well activities. And so rather than go after criminals and say, I understand these cars are easier to steal, but you still stole them and now you're going to prison, Keith Ellison and other Democrats decided we are going to punish the auto manufacturer for making it too easy for criminals to get their grubby hands on and drive off in someone else's vehicle here. And so Keith Ellison is celebrating now the fact that he successfully sued Kia and Hyundai for making their cars too easy to steal, and not a word, and I mean this literally, not a word about the perpetrators, the criminals, the repeat offenders that were the ones getting in the cars and driving them off in Grand Theft Auto. Did I get that right, Jason?
Yeah, and actually, just fact check, I looked it up. It was 35 states in on this lawsuit, and the device they didn't put in was called an ignition immobilizer, which meant without the key in it, it wouldn't start. So just so you guys know, because so many people steal cars, you pay extra money on your car because, that's kind of how I think about it too, is if there wasn't all this car theft, my car would have been cheaper too. Not that I'm buying a Kia or Hyundai or whatnot, but it's so fascinating. We're paying extra to make cars harder to steal rather than punishing criminals. But let's hear from Keith Ellison.
Public safety isn't only about holding people accountable when they commit crimes. It's also about holding corporations accountable when their negligence puts Minnesotans at risk.
In 2021, the Kia Boys Challenge swept social media after a few teenagers posted videos on TikTok showing how Kia and Hyundai vehicles could easily be stolen. This wasn't true in other car makes because nearly all other cars sold in America came equipped with something called an engine immobilizer. That standard came in almost all cars, but not in Kias and in Hyundais. Relatively few of them had the technology for the simple reason that these companies didn't make this common sense technology standard and installed them in their cars, as they did do in Mexico and Canada. Same car.
Attorney General's office, we led a bipartisan investigation into the vulnerabilities and uncovered just how serious these problems were. Even after Hyundai and Kia said that they had fixed the problem, they hadn't fixed the problem. We pressed these companies to do much more, and we won. Under the settlement, Hyundai and Kia must provide free ignition cylinder protectors for every vulnerable vehicle. They must pay millions of restitution to people whose cars were stolen or damaged. And every car they sell from now on must include anti-theft technology, the same standard the rest of the industry has used for years. At the end of the day, friends, when corporations cut corners, people get hurt. I'm going to hold them accountable every time. Everybody.
My God.
People watch that and they're going to be lefties that you're going to be eating Christmas dinner with that are like, yeah, get the evil corporations. I'm like, this is the attorney general who should be prosecuting criminals. Shouldn't he be running on a platform of, you know what? We are going to punish criminals who steal cars so hard, you don't have to worry about if you have the ignition thing. Like, you aren't going to get your car stolen. We can't even promise that. And he's going to brag about, yeah, we're not holding criminals accountable. It's funny, Will's kind of been on a rant on the Twitter lately where it's like, we need to bring back how we dealt with horse thieves.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, we should be hanging all of these teenagers. And he was almost, I want to go back to this clip right here. I won't play it again. But he's like proud of these Kia Boy challenge almost. He's like, look at these entrepreneurial spirits right here. They did a TikTok trend to expose the corrupt nature of car corporations. And it's like, hold on a second. This Kia challenge was just thug losers, repeat criminal offenders, stealing other people's vehicles. And he's up there lauding their behavior almost to be like, you see, this wouldn't have happened without the car manufacturer. Like, what?
And you're the attorney general. You are like the chief law enforcement officer. And you know what's wild, Todd? Can I tell you what's wild?
It gets wilder.
It gets wilder, just to put people in perspective. If Kamala would have won and Tim Walz was her VP, you know who was on the short list to be the AG?
Oh, it had to be this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know who would have been our governor? Peggy Flanagan. Like, just a domino effect of worse getting worse.
Right.
Yeah. It is really simple. If there is a criminal, you lock them up at minimum and you execute them, you know, if you don't want to deal with it again and you want to deter everybody. But again, like I said, Jason, he says one thing, well, criminals, got to hold them accountable. But really, we got to go after the car manufacturer, because if it's hard to steal, then they won't steal it. Right. I guess they would just hang up the, all right, I'm done being a thief. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to go get a degree and learn some skills. I was going to steal a Hyundai, but I'm going to turn my life around and be a scientist and an astronaut now.
Oh, my God. Should we go to the update on the Minnesota fraud, too, just to give you guys an idea what we're dealing with?
I think I reference this number. Every time they update us, Jason, it's like, well, we found another $10 billion. Here we go, folks. Here's the latest out of Minnesota with that, too.
Across the country, are there any other examples where the cost of Medicaid-funded programs saw this kind of exponential growth? Is Minnesota clearly an outlier when you look at spending on these programs across the board?
I think we're an outlier in a bad way, yes. Have I gone through every 50 state? No. But you don't see fraud on this scale in other states. And part of that is just we sit here as a team, and it's a relatively small team or a relatively small U.S. Attorney's Office. And every day we look under a rock and find a new $50 million fraud scheme. That shouldn't be the case in a state of our size. Certainly other states have problem with frauds, but I think our problem is unique insofar as we've just opened the door. You know, what we aren't seeing here, traditional Medicare or Medicaid fraud is people overbilling, upcoding. So you're instead of billing for a service with a relatively modest reimbursement, you claim to be providing a higher dollar value service, and you get more Medicaid payments or reimbursements that you should be entitled to. That's traditional. You may be getting 20% more. You're padding your bills. What we see here, and what I think is unique to Minnesota, is that's not what we're looking at. What we're seeing is programs that are just entirely fraudulent. These aren't companies that are providing some services but overbilling Medicare or Medicaid. These are companies that are providing essentially no services. They're essentially shell companies created to defraud the program.
So this guy did a study here. We actually did a video. It's up on our Facebook pages today or tomorrow. I think you'll publish it, Jason. But he's out there and saying, we went back and we pulled all the claims from just 2018 to present, over $18 billion. Now, he doesn't say that is all fraud. Some of that might be legitimate. But up to $18 billion in just the last 7 years going to billing and coding and claims for some of these organizations. Like, wrap your head around $18 billion of just like Somali fraud.
Well, and I'm going to give our audience pop quiz. So right now they've identified 18 billion that went to these Somali groups, the vast majority of which is probably fraud. And we'll get to that in a sec. So keep that number in your mind, 18 billion. What is the GDP of Somalia? Keeping in mind that 10% of their GDP is U.S. money. So in just the foreign aid we give them, that's 10% of their GDP. Todd, any guess what their GDP was last year?
Oh, I just had to Google it. This is so depressing. I'll let you share it.
$12 billion is the entire country of Somalia's GDP. 10% of that, so like 1.2 billion, is U.S. money, foreign aid. So you take the U.S. money out, about 10 billion in total economic output of the country of Somalia. Now, the 100,000 Somalis in America over the past
Minnesota.
In just Minnesota. So 100,000 of them in just Minnesota have a fraud somewhere between 10 and 18 billion dollars, more than the country produces in a year.
They doubled it.
Doubled it.
The Minnesota Somalis doubled the entire nation's GDP output just through these fraudulent claims.
Yeah, and to explain what he was talking about, and just to understand how nefarious it is, and then maybe we should talk about that Haiti story you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Like, that one's wild. So what they do is, in a Somali neighborhood, you have a Somali doctor who sets up Somali doctor, and they use their credentials from Somalia, which, just so you know, Somalia isn't even an effective enough country to have birth certificates, right? They don't even have birth certificates in that country, which, if you ever see a Somali's like driver's license, their birth date is like January 1st, whatever year. It's because they don't know what year they were born. They don't track it. They don't have it. It's just local guys who write out a birth certificate. But anyways, I digress. So Somali doctor, using their Somali credentials, sets up a autism clinic. And then he says, gets with the government, like, hey, I'm going to treat autism. And they don't audit any of this stuff in Minnesota. So then you talk to your Somali neighbors and say, hey, bring your kid in. I'm going to diagnose you as having autism. And then I get to provide services to you to help you with your autism. I can bill X amount a month. I will give you half the money, and I will keep half the money. And no services were provided. It's all auto-approved with the government. They tell you how much they'll approve. And it was so bad coming out in these court cases that Somali customers, so like the people in the neighborhoods, would go to one doctor and they'd say, oh, well, I'll sign up for autism services. We'll bill the government $5,000. I'll give you $2,500. The residents were negotiating. They're like, I don't want $2,500. I want $3,000, because without me submitting my information, you don't get anything. So they were going to multiple doctors to get the best deal. So don't buy this Democrat narrative when they're like, it was only like 70 people defrauding. No, it was the entire community was participating in the fraud. And Mark always mentions it when I bring this up too. For Majid on the autism spectrum, this pisses me off. This should really piss off everybody, because you know, kind of like the fat lady bitching that you can't get ding dongs or ho-hos with her EBT. You know, these people are actually taking money that we have set aside for people that really need it. But Todd, I'll let you tell the Haitian story.
Well, I just gotta say, my favorite part. I'm laughing about all this today, folks, because the alternative is. I don't even want to think about what the alternative is. It gets me in a dark place really fast. So I'm laughing about this today. But my favorite part, Jason, is that these individual Somalis would compete with all the offices and clinics and say they're going for the best price. Like this was kind of free market principles. Where can I get the most bang for my buck by lying about my autistic child here? And they're competing against all the storefronts here. But the same thing happened in Massachusetts. Another U.S. Attorney's Office just did a presser yesterday about this. Couple Haitian nationals. So we're diversifying now. We're not just picking on Somalis. Now we can go after the Haitians too. The entrepreneurial immigrant Haitians here. They set up fake storefronts. I think they said one was 150 square feet. So they just had a store, nothing in the store, but then they would have people bring their snap cards in and change them out for cash, basically. These stores did millions of dollars in services or transactions. And then so the U.S. Attorney's Office was like, well, here's a real store right next door. And they got about $8,000 in reimbursements a month. And you're over here and you're not a real store and you're doing $500,000 a month in reimbursements. It's not adding up here. So they got caught. But then you just have to ask yourself the question, Jason, like, how prevalent is this? These are just two examples. Like, how much fraud is there?
Well, and it's funny that EBT one just cracked me up because it just shows how stupid the system is. It's like easy. Literally, guy, I think he legitimately rented a space.
He had an actual building. There was a physical address, yeah, but then there were two stores within that address too.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so like if you think about it, next time you drive by like an empty little shop in a strip mall, you could rent that. You could you could set up an LLC, Bob's Market, Jason's Market, Jason and Todd's Market. Let's go into business. And then just talk to the local community and go, bring us your EBT. We're going to act like we sold you food, but we're just going to get the money. And then we keep it and we split it with you. And it's like no real food is purchased. None of it's there. I got to say too, you saw it. So I saw Dick James over on Facebook. These sick MFers need to die. And I'm like, wonder if he's talking about me and Todd, because you never know. And then he clarifies, I hate these. They come here, scam us, WTF, and then F democracy. Dick James, I'm going to say you have a personal invitation to go over to our Rumble chat. You are going to fit in so well. We talk about it on the show. Democracy is kind of a funny thing. Everybody's like, oh, democracy. We weren't a democracy. Like in the last 50, 100 years, we've opened up mass voting. You actually used to have to be a net contributor to society in order to vote. It was crazy.
Yeah. I actually wanted to touch on this. So Jimmy's over on the Facebook. Suddenly Facebook is popping now. I love it. I blame the idiots that keep voting for Democrats that allow this and are definitely getting their cut out of the fraud. Definitely part of that there too. I think Minnesota is an interesting case study on white guilt, Jason. You can tell your normie friends. I have, by the way. You tell your normie Democrat friends that are, we know people that just got their boosters for the season because you don't want to get sick in the flu season. And it is kind of like they excuse the Somali fraud specifically because they view that as a form of reparations. Never mind the fact that these Somalis just got here and have zero ties to America and certainly zero ties to slavery in America. But they're like, they deserve it because we're white and privileged. Like, it's a pathology with these people. They actually don't care that it's happening, because they see it as some way to forgive their own sins of being white, and it gives them a step up in the right direction. They got a little wealth for themselves. Like, it's insane. They actually are okay with it if you talk to them.
Right. Oh, man, the chats are just going funny. Mark, I want a civics test to be able to vote because that snap lady able to require to read for all skin colors. I got to be careful on some of these platforms. One of the things we've talked about, we've gone into detail on before, everybody talks about Jim Crow laws. Some of the Jim Crow laws they threw out is you used to have to pay a poll tax that was like $20 in today's money in order to vote, with the concept being if you can't scrape together $20 to pay to register, probably shouldn't be voting. Some states said you had to be a net contributor, landowner, you had to have a certain amount of economic success, because if you aren't able to manage your life effectively enough to have some level of economic success. Why should you vote? Some states had reading tests where you'd have to like read from it. And then some states would have a civics test where you'd have to read part of the Constitution and explain it to your poll worker in order to register to vote. And all that got thrown out in the 60s because it was racist, because literally the arguments were blacks can't read, blacks can't understand the Constitution, blacks don't understand civics. Now, keep in mind, whites that couldn't do those things either also wouldn't get to vote. So, like, if you were a poor white person who couldn't pay your poll tax, you didn't get to vote. If you were an uneducated white person that couldn't read, you didn't get to vote. But they threw it all out in the name of racism, and our country has not been improved.
Yeah, that was the disparate impact rule going all the way back to the 60s. Since it was there for everybody, but it affected a certain population more, then we can't do it. I got to say, Jason, too. So the 19th Amendment, everyone's like, you don't want women to vote, Todd. To be clear, I don't want most people to vote. But that was also destroyed family unions and marriages, because women weren't allowed to vote, primarily because women were married to a man, and it was one house, one vote is for a family, a successful family at that, by the way, own land, have a job, be a net contributor society. So I do want the 19th repealed, but I want all sorts of laws and restrictions in place that make it so like 5% of the country might be able to vote. So it's not anti-woman, it is anti-democracy at this point for me.
Actually, Todd, I have the simplest solution.
King Trump?
Well, we need King Trump. Like, God, I wish King Trump existed. All you need to do is say whatever regulations you put on getting a gun is the same regulation that you have for voting. Both are constitutional. Both are rights in the Constitution. Both have an impact personally and on society at large. They all have all that going on. So in my opinion, if you said, hey, if you're going to require a background check, if you're going to require a competency test, if you're going to require IDs, a waiting period to make me buy a gun, let's just do all that for voting. If you want to vote, you should get a background check. You should, do all the same steps, have a competency test, and just tie the two together and say, whatever you need to get a gun is what you need to vote. Case closed, like problem solved.
Do you think illegals in Minnesota can go buy handguns? Wouldn't that be an interesting confluence of we hate guns and we love illegals and they get ideas, and here, by the way, we'll let the illegals buy a gun, but not you, the law-abiding American citizen.
We've covered it on previous podcasts where when you vote or when you register, we actually pulled up the form on one. When you register to get your license in Minnesota, it automatically enrolls you in the voting database. And if you don't hit no, I don't want to, I don't qualify, if you just mark the box yes, you get a ballot. And it's never caught. So
I bet it's happened. Yeah. Bubba's over there saying man, Minnesota is really communist. Yes, it is, Bubba. Yes, it is.
Right. Should we wrap up the last hour with just a story or two that might bring good news or excitement to people's lives?
Jason, I have been railing about arrest. You have been railing about arrest. What are we going to do, Trump administration, about all the corruption in politics and the judicial branch here? We got a feel-good story out of Wisconsin where a rogue activist woman masquerading as a judge, and if you see a picture of her, of course, this is the type of woman that would be helping an illegal alien evade ICE capture in her courtroom. But she was charged and found guilty of a felony for helping this illegal alien avoid detection while he was in the courtroom here. So we got a little clip of her doing that thing here, and then we can talk about that story.
Inside her courtroom April 18th, wearing her black robes, appearing to confront several federal agents there to arrest Eduardo Flores Ruiz, a Milwaukee man and Mexican national
Milwaukee man. He's just a Milwaukee man.
Charged locally with 3 counts of domestic battery. This video, released by Milwaukee County through an open records request.
A Milwaukee man convicted of 3 counts of domestic battery. So he beat the shit out of his wife or girlfriend.
He's part of the evidence in the case against Judge Dugan, who's charged with obstructing a federal investigation, concealing Flores Ruiz, allowing him to leave her courtroom by a different door after sending the agents to speak to the chief judge. Flores Ruiz, dressed in black with his attorney, is seen in several of the videos leaving by that other door, one prosecutors say was used by jurors and not open to the public. As he leaves, though, he is seen in the hallway, followed by another agent. As Flores Ruiz gets into the elevator to leave, the agent slips in as well. According to the criminal complaint against Dugan, that agent followed them down. The agent seen here following out of the building downstairs, and once backup arrived, they tried to arrest Flores Ruiz, who another video shows ran north in front of the courthouse for nearly a block before agents caught up with him and arrested him. Federal agents arrested Dugan herself a week later.
Eduardo Flores Ruiz's domestic violence case is moving through the Milwaukee County Court. He is, however, in federal custody on his immigration arrest.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Boy, if that doesn't bring a little cheer this Christmas season.
I was going to say,
it's one judge out of thousands, but it's a start.
We covered that story when it broke. Yeah. And I mean, this woman, like, she literally was standing up for the dude. I mean, if you look at Flores's picture, Eduardo Flores beat the hell out of his girlfriend, and she snuck him out the back door so ICE couldn't detain him. And I believe he is a legal immigrant. Don't quote me. I'd have to look it back up. But it was just announced last night into this morning. She was convicted. Now, this is an important thing, too. She wasn't charged at the state level. She was charged at the federal level. So instead of just pulling, ICE announced removal. There we go. Nice. Todd,
it was illegal.
But she could have been charged at the state level, which means the jury pool would have been out of Milwaukee, which means that judge would have walked. Because they did a federal case, and so give Pam Bondi credit, like this is her office that did it, they were able to expand beyond just Milwaukee to pull in the jury pool. She got convicted. Sounds like she's facing up to 5 years in prison, but she will lose her judgeship and she will lose her law license. So she risked it all for the wife-beating illegal immigrant.
And I just got to say, too, this is a female judge. I guess I'm imposing some gender identity on her, I guess. I am assuming she's a woman. She, instead of standing up for other victims of abuse, remember Me Too, Jason, and all this feminist stuff like stand up for women, men are so toxic here. She decided to defend one of those guys that goes out and beats women. So instead of standing up for another woman, as you all should, by the way, she's like, no, he is illegal. So checking that one box, illegal immigrant, means everything else doesn't matter here. It's so important to keep a violent criminal alien in our country because I am a good liberal.
Right. Well, and there's some action over on the Rumble chat. They're like, oh, why is she only getting 5 years? And she's just a peon. I think if we're going to give Pam Bondi, which we're really hard on Pam Bondi, a legitimate feedback, she is doing some things like this really good. Like this guy, that judge, this guy wouldn't have been deported and that judge wouldn't have been arrested and lost her law license, which hasn't happened yet. But that's like good Pam Bondi. They're doing a lot of that, like on the ground. They broke up a bunch of sex trafficking rings, things like that. The problem is we want the big scalps because it's kind of like when you go after the drug networks. Like you can arrest all the dealers you want. If you don't get the kingpin, all of it just changes and happens again. So to be fair, like Pam's doing this okay, but we want the big scalp.
There. And I think to Market Zero's question, 5 is just the charge that, like, that's the term that comes with the charge. So, I forget the exact charge it was, but I think 5 was the maximum laid out in the statute. And so, yeah, it'd be nice, Jason, for like, I don't know, a gallows or a life in prison, but I will take whatever punishment. If she actually spends a day in prison, I will be shocked, by the way. I guess I'll take it. I mean, she needs the max, but I'm going to be surprised that she sees any time in prison. First-time offender, She's got the liberal judge. Democrat privilege is a real thing here. I don't know. If she actually goes to prison, I will be shocked.
I would be surprised too if she loses her law license, but I think that's the thing. I mean, we got it. We can't be all negative. We got to try to celebrate some wins. And before we log off Facebook too, I got to share this EEOC thing because I think that's going to transition really well into what we're going to talk about on Rumble only. What do you think, Todd? Is that where we should wrap up?
Well, the tide is turning. I am not prepared at all to say woke is dead. Woke is alive and well, but at least there are inroads being made to combat it. Should we just play the video, no comment, and then react on the other side, Jason?
I think so.
All right. Well, with that being said, Facebook folks, we are going to play a clip from the Trump administration cracking down on anti-white, anti-male discrimination here. Good things happening on that front. The show is not over. So if you're watching us on Facebook here, we had Craig in the chat recently. Well, we got a lot of Rumble chats here as I'm scrolling up. We had John in the chat, Mark in the chat, Joel, Lori, Steve. Appreciate you guys all watching. The Facebook feed is going to cut off here. If you want to keep watching the show, Jason and I go for another half hour over at rumble.com, rumble.com. If you're looking for an app on your phone, it is a green play button. Check out the American Tribune, and you can find our podcast, Freedom from the Press. We're going to live. We're going strong here. We got a lot of DEI, a lot of race nonsense to talk about here. It's going to get spicy, so we got to say goodbye to our Facebook feed here. But appreciate you guys tuning in. And again, find us at rumble.com, the American Tribune.
I love this clip. And I just want to say to our Facebook, YouTube folks, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Todd and I'll see you the Friday after New Year's. Whatever day that is. I don't have my calendar in front of me. Next Friday, I got kidney stone surgery. And then I think there's 1 week in January. Todd's got something going on, but we'll be back every Friday. We love you guys. We appreciate you tuning in. And the next couple of weeks, we might do a midweek thing if the calendar allows. I know I usually do the Wayne Dupree podcast. He's off the next couple of weeks. So keep your notifications turned on. If we got time in the calendar, well, we might hop on and do another show. We just love hanging out with you guys, but we'll see you guys after the video and then after the intro over on the Rumble side.
Opportunity Commission. Are you a white male who's experienced discrimination at work based on your race or sex? You may have a claim to recover money under federal civil rights laws. Contact the EEOC as soon as possible. Time limits are typically strict for filing a claim. The EEOC is the federal agency charged with enforcing federal anti-discrimination law against businesses and other private sector employers. The EEOC is committed to identifying, attacking, and eliminating all forms of race and sex discrimination, including against white male applicants and employees. Check out eeoc.gov to learn more and read our one-page explainer about DEI-related discrimination.